Hello, my name's Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL graduates, and welcome back to our first team reveals of the season. And to be honest, these team reveals aren't quite up to date. To keep up to date with all of our changes that we're making and tinkering that we're doing throughout the season, make sure to head over to our Patreon. We'll leave the link in the description. That's where we post our updated teams really regularly and give out all that good stuff like the tips, the team reveals, as well as all the information and news that you do need.
Okay, then, so yeah, into my team first. My team hasn't actually changed too much, so it is pretty similar to what the guys on Patreon have been seeing so far. My initial thoughts is that strategy is obviously going to be super important this season. We've got more chips and obviously those first half of the season chips as well. So I'm currently leaning towards the camp of using the bench boost in Gameweek 1. It's a bit questionable for some people. I just don't like the bench boost chip. I find it very difficult to actually optimize it throughout the season, like I did last year. Felt like I took way too many hits and just unnecessary transfers that I probably wouldn't have taken if I weren't playing that chip. So if I can get it out of the way early doors, I'll be pretty satisfied in doing that. And that is the plan at the moment. This could obviously change by Game Week 1. We're 24 days away from the magic deadline of Game Week 1. So yeah, still plenty of time to tinker, but that is my current thought strategy wise. So go into this thinking bench boost is active. In goal, then we have got Verbruggen first of all at Brighton. Fulham at home on the opening day isn't too bad of a fixture. I expect Brighton to improve defensively. They've made a lot of reinforcements there in the transfer window. They've got four very good centre backs now. Obviously signed De Kuiper as well as a left back as an Estupinan replacement. They're also quite versatile in sort of what system they play as well. It can be a back four, it can be a back three, which I quite like as well. So he's in goal. 4.5 inning keepers. There's not too much to choose at the moment. And I'm obviously on a bench boost, so I'm fairly restricted funds wise. Goalkeepers as well for me are probably, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is but less enticing now that defensive contributions have come in. Obviously, they do get their save points, but I feel like three saves is a lot less common than 10 defensive contributions for a defender, especially in a defense that hasn't got a lot of the ball. So there's Verbruggen in goal. I think he's probably the best of a bad bunch in at 4.5. Starting in defence, we've got Van der Ven, Burnley at home. Obviously, 4.5 million is a decent price. I expect Spurs to be better defensively with Thomas Frank. And yeah, obviously, again, defensive contributions. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, he had an injury hit season last season, so maybe that can sort of positively impact his rankings on that. Gabriel is next. Man United away this game week. I think it's a decent fixture. I think United will take time to get to grips with that attack. Obviously, two big new signings with Brian and Mbumo and Mateus Cunha. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But Gabriel just ever reliable. You know he's going to play. He's got great set piece threat as well, which is nice. So yeah, happy with him. And then Levi Colwill to round off the defence. Basically, just to get some Chelsea coverage as they have some nice fixtures to start the season. Palace at home, I don't think it's a bad one. I don't think it's a lock for the clean sheet though, so it could be somewhere where maybe I venture off to someone else. What's the thoughts on the defence, Ben, before I get onto the bench?
Yeah, I mean the defense is as solid as it can be whilst on a bench boost. Of course, there's an element of risk with a bench boost in Game Week 1, just given that we may not have the information on who's going to start the season, etc. Although we'll have a pretty good idea through pre-season, which is a good thing. So yeah, to talk about Verbruggen, I think it's a decent option. There's not actually that many options to go for at that 4.5 million price bracket. And then Van der Ven is one that's interesting because I do think he's due a good season. The injury hit season means that he's undervalued this season, which is really nice. And like I said, with Gabriel, the Arsenal defence is always going to be solid, I think, despite fixtures. And Colwell, I think Chelsea will have a good season. And as we get through the video, we'll see that that Colwell pick will probably be more sensible as coverage for Chelsea than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. And then on the bench, then this is obviously the bench boost players at the moment. So we've got Carl Darlow, as I can say, for Leeds. He was starting goalkeeper at the back end of last season for Leeds United. Whether he's starting goalkeeper come game week 1, we'll have to wait and see. They are looking to buy a goalkeeper, so yeah, definitely not nailed there. Obviously, Kinski has been rumoured to be, Thomas Frank's potential number one. Again, we'll have to wait and see on that. Both of them, though, are on my watch list. Danny Welbeck on the bench, Fulham at home, game week 1. I really quite like the look of Brighton at the moment. I think a lot of their players are priced very well. And obviously, Danny Welbeck did very well last season as well. On penalties, more than likely, now that obviously João Pedro's off at Chelsea. I just quite like him for the start of the season. I then doubled up on the West Ham defence at Sunderland away. Not 100% keen on this. I do prefer Diouf to Wan-Bissaka. I think there's quite a possibility, and quite a high possibility, that Wan-Bissaka plays right centre-back next season with Kyle Walker-Peters and Diouf as the wing-backs. Diouf had 0.4 XA for Slavia Prague last season, so very attacking, good assist threat from him. I think both of them have a good chance of clean sheet, obviously, against Sunderland on the opening day. However, it is obviously away. If it was at home, I'd be much more confident, just because obviously it's the first game back in the Premier League. So what's the thoughts on that bench boost, Ben?
Yeah, I think the Danny Welbeck shout is good, even if you're not on a bench boost. So I think there's not actually too many options to go for in a striker category this year, at least not any that present as good a value really as it stands as Danny Welbeck, which is interesting. Yeah, I think with Wan-Bissaka and Diouf, there's going to be that element of risk with the double up. With West Ham, they're not convincing defensively at the best of times. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. And Sunderland are making a few decent acquisitions as well. They've been the most impressive in the transfer window from a promoted club so far. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I think the bench boost is, a strategy that a lot of managers will take up. Whether it will be template by game week 1, I'm not sure. So we'll just have to wait and see on that.
Okay, then moving into the midfield, then this is where some of the more pricier options are coming in. We'll start from left to right with Omar Marmoush. He's got Wolves away on the opening day, and obviously newly moved and classified to a midfielder. 8.5 million is an expensive price tag to pay, to be fair. But he was electric, to be fair, since he joined in January. Only Gvardiol had more minutes for Manchester City last season since Marmoush joined. So I think minutes-wise, he is fairly secure. Saying that, though, there's about 6 or 7 players who could probably play in his position in that City team. So there's the big risk with him. I think the more I think about it, I probably would move off of him as I go through this pre-season. I just need to see a more security of minutes, I think, for me to be thinking, yeah, let's go for him at 8.5 million, especially when you can get a lot of good value picks around that sort of price tag. Kudus is up next, Burnley at home. He was on all set pieces in the first friendly of pre-season for Spurs on the corners, which is interesting because Heung-min Son was on the pitch, and obviously Kudus didn't take corners whilst he was at West Ham. So yeah, interesting addition there. 6.5 million is, I think, a fair price. Obviously his goal involvements last season weren't great, but I think there's a reason that Spurs have spent so much money on him. I think Thomas Frank loves a versatile attacker like we've seen at Brentford, and Kudus certainly fits the bill in that regards. Morgan Rogers is up next. I think he's just reliable. I think you need a few of these guys in your Game Week 1 draft. People will start, people will get returns. Morgan Rogers is exactly that. Fantastic breakout year last year. £7 million, I think, is very reasonable for a man of his services. Newcastle at home, it always got goals in it that game, so I expect Rodgers to get on the score sheet. And then we've got our Liverpool double up in the midfield. Obviously, Mo Salah will take the armband for me in Game Week 1. I'm fairly confident in that. And then Florian Wirtz to back him up as well. The new signing, 8.5 million, comes in underpriced in my opinion. I think it's crazy how you can get Wirtz and Kirkes or Frimpong for the same price as Salah, but I guess that's why they've priced him like that. So people will probably move away from Salah, which I think is absolutely criminal. But yeah, I think I'm excited to see how he can sort of perform in the Premier League. Very exciting signing. Liverpool just going absolutely bonkers in the market. Ekitike, Wirtz, Frimpong, Kirkes, you name it, they're probably buying them. What's your thoughts on the midfield, Ben?
Yeah, very solid midfield, and like I said on Wirtz and Salah, completely agree. I think they're going to be fantastic options this season, and Salah's price point makes managers make a decision, which is all you can ask from FPL in terms of price and the players. Morgan Rogers is an interesting one. I think for a bench booster, it's a solid option. He may have been sort of underrated by those who aren't bench boosting for game week one. So he's not in sort of every draft that I've seen anyway, but definitely option that's maybe been underrated slightly because of all the new shiny toys that we've got in new signings. Mohamed Kudus is a fantastic option, I think, with Thomas Frank really sort of, you know, he's going to be bringing in experts on set pieces. Tottenham are going to get so much better from set pieces. If Kudus is taking them, then that's even better. At 6.5 million, he could be an absolute steal if he starts for Spurs week in, week out. Big if, because of course Spurs have got a few options in those areas out wide. And then Marmoush, I can see your reasonings on why you aren't so keen on him. Because of that bench boost and the points that's at risk that if he doesn't start. But like he said, on the other hand, he started so many times last season that the minutes seem secure. Pep seems to really like him as a player. So I think there is an element of like maybe sort of because you're using that chip, you're a bit more sort of hesitant. I think if you weren't using the bench boost, he'd probably still be around in your team and fairly secure in that position.
Okay, then, and to round off the team, we've got the two forwards. It's Jarrod Bowen, who surprisingly has been classified as a forward this year. I think they've done it more so because there's not as many forwards to choose from at the minute. We definitely need the likes of Gyökeres and Ekitike to be added to the game. £8 million, though, I still think he's a decent option. Even as a forward, okay, he's going to lose points for one less for a goal, one less for a clean sheet, but I still think he's a solid choice, especially for Game Week 1 Sunderland away. Just ever reliable. I think he still would have scored about 170-ish points last season if you convert it to sort of forward points. So it'll be interesting to see how he does, but I think he is still an option. It's not like he's a forward now, let's write him off. And then Dominic Solanke rounds off a triple up of Spurs. If you told me that on pre-season that I'd have triple up Spurs game week 1, that would have been interesting. Really sort of attacking the fixture though, that Burnley at home game. I expect them to come out the blocks. To be honest, I have quite high belief in Thomas Frank. I think he will, really start well. There's so many good players at Spurs that they just need to all click, and then hopefully they'll be able to play well. They had a lot of injuries last year. I think that really hampered Ange in the league. So Solanke could be on penalties as well. Remember, obviously, with Son probably not starting realistically, I think there's a strong chance that Solanke could be on those as well, which is good for a player who's only 7.5 million. No price change from him this year. What's the thoughts on the front two, Ben?
Yeah, I think due to sort of the options that seem to be lacking at the lower price point, a lot of these £7.5 to £8 million strikers are going to be picked this year. And I think, Bowen and Solanke are decent options, both in their own rights. Bowen's got that talismanic figure, which you want from a striker, secure in minutes with both of them, which I think is the key here with your selections. And we'll have to see how Solanke gets on this season. Hopefully sort of kicks on a little bit from last and picks up a few more points and a few more goals. And like I said, under Thomas Frank, I do think Spurs are going to be a much improved side. Okay, then, so moving on into my team and my first draft, and to be honest, it is a lot different now. But of course, that is with any tinkering, it changes in a moment. So, in terms of my first draft, Kelleher in goal, I think is a decent option. As I do think Brentford will struggle a lot more this season than last season, but we do know that Brentford's new manager was in the coaching setup with Thomas Franks, who will have the same ideologies, the same style of play. So hopefully it doesn't affect them too much. I do think with their style that Kelleher will get a lot of shots at him. So potential save points is high. We saw how many Flecken got last season. So, fairly happy with him. And it is a reason he is the most popular keeper in the game at the moment. In there, we've got Frimpong in defence. There's an element of me that thinks that he might get rotated with Connor Bradley on a semi-regular basis. So as it stands, I'm thinking of moving him on to someone else, maybe a Ryan Ait-Nouri, maybe, one of those other 6 million defenders from Arsenal or Liverpool that is more secure in minutes. But he looked very, very attacking in that first pre-season game that Liverpool played. The one against Stoke, he looked incredible in the highlights. So I do think he's going to provide real attacking threat. I do think there's going to be an element of rotation risk with all those Liverpool fullbacks, not just Frimpong. Levi Colwill in there as well. Chelsea defensively weren't that bad last season, a lot of clean sheets, and Cole priced at 5 million, I think is quite fair and reasonable. In terms of defensive actions, I don't expect him to pick up the 2 points every game week, but once every three, and you should be happy with that. De Kuiper from Brighton is a really interesting one at 4.5 million. He comes in as a new player at Brighton. I think for the bench boosters, it's a bit of a risk. We'll have to see how he plays in pre-season, because he could end up being on set pieces as well for Brighton, which would be really exciting. And then Van der Ven as well in that team, 4.5 million. Again, in the Spurs defence, there's elements of sort of risk with other defenders. I think Van der Ven is probably the most secure in terms of his minutes as it stands, in terms of the Spurs defenders. So, Josh, that rounds up the current defence so far. What's your first thoughts?
Yeah, I think Kelleher is in the conversation for the 4.5 keeper. I think save points more than clean sheet points, although Nottingham Forest weren't exactly the most thrilling going forwards at the end of last season, and obviously have lost Alanga since then. So we'll be interested to see how they do. Frimpong, I agree. I think there's definite minutes risk with him, even if he starts. Like, I was looking at his average minutes last season for Leverkusen, and he was only averaging around 70 minutes per game. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of pans itself out. I definitely don't think you're getting a 90-minute player if you are picking him. However, his ceiling is like sky high, so it should be an interesting one next season for sure. Colwill, obviously, yeah, safe and reliable. I think Cucurella could be worth the money at 6. Obviously, he scored the most goals in the Premier League last season out of all defenders, Cucurella. So one to weigh up there at that 6 million price point. De Kuiper's interesting. Hopefully he's not going to be another Barco and go out on loan, which I'm sure he won't be now that Estupiñán is obviously off to Milan. But yeah, very attacking. I think a few people owned him in Euros Fantasy for Belgium as well, I seem to recall. So yeah, good attacking threat with him. And yeah, Van der Ven, similar sort of reasoning to me. I think he's ever reliable, and hopefully should pick up some of those defensive contribution points.
Okay, so moving on into the midfield, I've also gone with the double up in Liverpool in terms of the midfield. Florian Wirtz and Mohamed Salah. Do think from an attacking perspective, Liverpool are going to be good this year. So the triple up at the moment is what's on the cards. We've also got Cole Palmer in there as well. Despite sort of the poor second half of the season, I do think Palmer is still a fantastic option. Looks really good in the Club World Cup as well for Chelsea. So a lot of managers are going to go to him based on that. And of course, gives you a bit of flexibility here and there. And then to round up the midfield, I've also got Omar Marmoush, who I think is a secondary striker to Erling Haaland, is going to provide fantastic value. And in terms of sort of coverage, I'm more comfortable covering Haaland than I am with Salah, which is why I've got Marmoush instead of Erling Haaland and a potential sort of Florian Wirtz and +1 Liverpool player. I'm more confident in owning Marmoush in that regard. So, Josh, what's the thoughts on the midfield?
Yeah, I'll just touch on Palmer because obviously I said my thoughts on the other three on my team. I think Palmer is decent this season. I'm just hoping from an FPL point of view, we see him off the right. He's always involved in the goals when he plays on the right, like we saw in the Club World Cup final against PSG. So yeah, that's for me his best position in that Chelsea team. It's just whether he gets played there enough in that Enzo Maresca system. I think there's going to be a lot of Chelsea assets. We'll see the goals shared around them quite a bit, and obviously they have the best attacking fixtures to start the season. So having a Chelsea attacker is definitely worth it.
Okay, so to round up the team in the strike force, we've got Danny Welbeck as well, who again, Brighton could be a decent option to go for this season because their assets are priced fairly well, like Matoma, 6.5 million as well, which is not bad. And then I've got João Pedro up front. Now, I think João Pedro is a little bit of a risk, but also has really high reward in that regard. We could see him and should see him hopefully starting game week 1 between him and Drat, because of course Jackson is suspended. I'd expect him to probably take up more minutes than Drat will. But again, that remains to be seen whether that's actually going to happen. So we'll just have to see what happens with that, because Maresca can tinker with his team every now and then. And then on the bench, we've currently got Neto, Dango Atara, Gay and Fraser on the bench. Again, like Atara could be, upgraded to a 6.5 million midfielder like Kudus or someone like that. And Gay, could be a decent option at 4.5 million for Palace. So yeah, that's the overall team. There's going to be a lot of changes before the start of the season. In fact, I already have, as mentioned previously. So, Josh, that's the overall team. What's the overall sort of overriding view on it?
Yeah, I think it looks solid. 4-4-2 is interesting. When you sent me it over, I was just like, that's an interesting first draft. You don't see many fullbacks, but yeah, I think it's valid in your case. João Pedro is one that I'm not as keen on. I feel like he's going to be like a 60-minute man, and if he hasn't scored by then, Delap's going to come on. They're going to really fight each other for the minutes. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he was electric in the Club World Cup, so yeah, obviously it's his place to lose. It feels at the moment, but I do expect Delap to definitely eat away at his minutes in the season. So one to watch. Obviously, you've got some Chelsea coverage there anyway. It's just those forward spots. We need a few more options, I think, to go into the season with. Okay, then, so that wraps up our first drafts of the 25-26 season. If you haven't already, make sure you do hit the subscribe button if you're watching this late into the video. We are on the road to 4,000 subscribers. Let's hope we can hit there before Gameweek 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as usual, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL graduates. I've been Ben,
I've been Josh.
and we'll see you guys
Next time, have a good preseason, everyone.
But I'm not going down with you. So you may rise, but you'll never make me wanna stick around.